Okay, welcome class. This is the Rhino 8 for Mac getting started. And I am Mary Fugier out of the McNeel Seattle office. And this is our project for today. So it's the shaker table, and I'm going to show you a little bit more about it. But before I do that, I want to make sure you know a couple of places to go and download today's materials. So I do want you to download a zip file and unzip a collection of materials. Now, what I wanted to show you here is that if you go to buy, what you're going to notice that there's only one version of Rhino. So you buy one license of Rhino and you can run it on Windows or Mac. So when you buy Rhino, you're not buying it for one platform or the other. And with the Cloud Zoo installation, you can you can add your key to the Cloud Zoo and be able to run Rhino on both. So you can float Rhino between a Windows computer and a Mac computer, between a Windows computer in the shop, a Windows computer on your desk, a Mac computer at home. So using the Cloud Zoo licensing, you're going to be able to float your Rhino, but not just between computers, but between computers with different operating systems. And that is why when you come out here to download, you have access to both Rhino for Windows and Rhino for Mac. And if you're interested in what the features are for Rhino, you can go to features. There's lots of videos here and information about the new features that are in Rhino 8. At this point, if you're using, if you have used Rhino 7, you are going to notice that the UI has changed from Mac, but now looks a little bit more like Windows. So let's go ahead and get into that now that you know where everything is going to be located. So let me get back here. So let's take a look at one more thing. When you download the materials for class and unzip them, they're going to show up like this. And there is a PDF file that has the dimensions in it. And you're welcome to do the getting started in centimeters, or you can do it in inches. Now, I'm going to be presenting in inches, so I would recommend going through it in inches, and then after the class, if you want to do it in centimeters, go ahead and do it in centimeters. But I have two files that I'm going to you have the choice of opening. One is called Start Here Shaker Table, which is in inches, and then the alternative method is using centimeters, and you can pick on shaker table centimeters. Again, it's a little bit easier to just go through this with me with inches, since that's what I'm using, but after the class, go ahead and go through it in centimeters. In the PDF file, I've turned on the alternate dimension so that you can see both the value in inches and in centimeters. So this is for your reference. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at, so these are the materials for today's class, including the PDF. And why I showed that to you is if you're like, where the heck did Mary get 28 inches? It's in there. So take a look at the PDF and you'll know where I'm getting my dimensions from. So these are the files. I did a little bit of practice, which is what I'm showing you here. So this is what you will have by the end of class, or at least something similar. What I expect that during the class, you'll be just poking buttons, making geometry. Your table may not look exactly like mine the first time through, but that's what the video is for. So go as fast as you can, and then when things start to fall apart, then just pick it up later with the video. Everything will be there from the moment we turned on the recording. But what I do expect is that you're finding the commands and you're picking them and you're starting them. And even if your table doesn't look like mine, you're creating geometry. And that is the goal here of the getting started. So what I want to show you about this file is in Rhino 8, the modeling aids have changed. They're now down at the bottom, as well as the tabs that will let us access our viewports. And I just want to show these off to you right now. And that is that the layouts uh, are going to show us different pages of our model. So we have one model, but then we have the layouts that are showing us different, excuse the overuse of the term, but layouts of that geometry. And when I go to print, I can print all the layouts or I can just print one. So the layouts are going to help us take that 3D model that we've created here and put them on a sheet of paper. Now, one of the features that Rhino 8 has added is a way to turn off layers, or a lot of products call them levels, in just model space. So if I turn on the dimension layer in the model, you'll notice that the dimensions show up. But we're going to talk more about this, but I can turn off that layer in the model, but keep the dimensions on in the layout. So just a little tour of this practice model so you can see what we are going to be aiming for. If not, if you can't get here during this class, then you'll get here with the video going through step by step and being able to start and stop. So what I want to do here is just take whatever model you have open is great. If you go up to File on Rhino for Mac, you're going to see two new options. One is New, and one is New using Template. So let's do that together. I'm going to pick New using Template. And then Rhino brings up this dialog box. And in this dialog box, I can pick from templates that Rhino ships with. And one of them can be the default. So if I come down here and I pick on the template small objects millimeters, I can make that the default template. So if I just pick new, then that template will be used. Okay, so if I do File, New using Template, and I pick on small objects millimeters, and I pick make that the default template, then the next time I begin using that default and small objects millimeters is the default template. So let's look at Rhino 8. So if you have watched any videos from Rhino 7, you're going to see that it immediately looks a little bit more condensed, hopefully a little bit more modern. And then if you've worked at all with Rhino for Windows, it's a lot more like Rhino for Windows. And starting at the top, we have our menu bars. And if you are looking for a command and you don't know what the button looks like, a lot of times you can navigate through the menus in 9 different languages, that's what Rhino's available in, and find your command. So the menus are a great place to find commands if you don't know what you're looking for. Now, if you are watching a video, let's say that my colleague Kyle has done, and he talks about the loft command, and you don't know where it is, you can type in the loft command, and the loft command will start. Now, in addition to that, if you look over here at our panels, when you first opened Rhino, the help panel was open. Now, if you've been working in Rhino for a while, you may have opened other panels, and I'm going to show you a way that you can return Rhino to its default setting, and that is up here under Window and under Window Layouts and Default Window Layout. If you do that, then it will return Rhino, the interface, to the way it looked the last when you first opened Rhino. And a question I get a lot in tech support is, what about the models that I've already created? And that's an important question because Rhino does not manage your models for you. Rhino lets you decide where your models are. So if you uninstall Rhino or return Rhino to default settings, it's not going to change where your models are being stored. Your models are still going to be on your computer. Now, I realize there are programs out there that store your models for you on the cloud. Rhino is not one of them. So you need to make a folder, keep track of your models, and realize that Rhino is not going to delete your models if you have to uninstall Rhino. So uninstall Rhino, you've got your program, you've got your data files, they're completely different. So when I return Rhino to its default setting and I'm watching that video that Kyle did, if I type in Loft, then the panel over here gives me information about the Loft command. If you don't see the panel, you can pick on the gear, you can come down to show panels, and you can make sure that there's a check mark in help. This is what is important if you don't have the help panel. So make sure that check mark is there in help. This is extremely useful. The other thing it tells me is where the command is located. And if I go up here to the tabs and over to Surface Tools, I will find the Loft command on that toolbar. Now, without typing it in, having this help panel open, I would have no idea that the Loft command looked like this. But now that I know that, I can go directly to it. So the help panel is really great to have open as you're learning Rhino to find out kind of in reverse where commands are located. So if I type in polyline, then the polyline starts and I get a look at what that button looks like, and I can see it on main 1 or main 2. So if I hit escape to cancel it, I can see it there. Okay, so that's a little bit of reverse engineering on where the buttons are. Below the main toolbar, you will find your object snaps, and object snaps are point filters. You use them to snap onto existing geometry. So you're going to see that today. Below, or I should say to the right of the sidebar, you're going to see the viewports. And when I have the table model open, so if I go back up here to Window, you can see that Rhino for Mac allows me to have multiple documents open. So if I'm in this file here, then I can double click on the perspective to return to the views, and now I'm viewing in these viewports, thus the name, the different views of this model. And if I double click to make one active, I can pick between them using the titles here, or tabs. They don't really look like tabs, but that's what we call them, to go between the viewports. Now below, so up here under Window, I can go back to Untitled. So below the viewports and the viewport tabs is our status bar. And if you were using Rhino 6 or Rhino 7, you may have seen it up here. It's now moved to the bottom to be more like Windows. For good or for bad, that's where it is. And it looks like it's not going anywhere. So if you move your cursor around, you can see that your coordinates update on the construction plane. It also tells you the units of your model, your default layer, and then our modeling aids. So if you have not used, let's see if I can get that Mac toolbar over here. There we go. If you have Snap or Ortho turned on, go ahead and turn them off. Have OSNAP on, that's okay. We're going to add the gumball back in so you can pick on that and turn it off. Turn auto seaplane off for now, and we're going to add those back in kind of one at a time. And in addition to that, let's go ahead and move over to our panels, because the panels, these are the default panels. And one of the questions before class is, how do we keep our layer and our object properties panel open at the same time? Well, first of all, you can open more panels by going to show panels. So we saw that just a little bit ago. So I have the layouts panel open. You might not have that open. I also have, let's say, layer states. I can open those back up again. So you can see now I get more tabs over here. And any of these I can move out. So I can grab layer and move it out so it's floating, or floating on another monitor, and I move it around by the tab. So this is important to distinguish between the tab and this gray area over here. If I pick it up by the tab and drop it, I'm going to be adding it to this container. If I pick it up by the tab, I'll be moving it out of that container. However, if I pick it up by the gray area, by the title bar of this toolbar, and move it down to this really pretty lavender box and let go at the bottom of the screen, I now have essentially the two inspectors that Rhino 7 and Rhino 6 shipped with. So anyway, let's look at that one more time. Move it from the gray area, and you can move it up instead of down. If you prefer your layers on top, you can move it up here, and now you have your additional panels like the property panel down here, and up at the top you have your layers panel pulled off and docked. So what I like to do, I like to have it at the bottom. So I'm going to move it back down to the bottom. I'm going to aim for that pretty lavender panel. And then in addition to having properties, display mode, help, and whatever else you have opened up here, go to the gear and show panel and look for a panel called Tutorials panel. And the Tutorials panel is going to get you to the user guide, which are some additional tutorials that you can do with Rhino. So you can go to the user guide. The great thing about the Tutorials panel is that you can double click to open the PDF, and you can also, so there's the PDF for the user guide, and you can go through these exercises after the class as well. So that's a really good place to start when you're done with today's class. Now, the great thing is that if you're going to do the drag objects exercise, you can double click on the 3DM and it just opens it up in Rhino. Okay, so you don't have to go download a packet of files to do the user guide. You just have to open the file in Rhino. Okay, and then if you don't want to save it, you can just close it down. The user guide is one option. You can also take a look at the level 1 training guide, which is really meant to go with an instructor, but you can double click there and do some of the exercises and see how far you get. But what I want you to do under level 1 is scroll all the way down to the file called start.3dm. And this is going to get us started here today with navigating around Rhino. So start.3dm opens, and it opens in this 3 viewport mode. So what I would like you to do is either type in 4view or pick the 4view command up here on the standard toolbar. And you can also pick it down here to return to 4view display. So like I said, you can type in 4view and return this model to the 4view display. And let's look at navigating around this model. First of all, you'll see 4 standard viewports, and the viewports are titled, and each viewport has its own grid and construction plane, and I'll show you how you can see that here in a moment. But if you double click on the viewport title, you can maximize it to the screen. And if you double click again, you will return to the 4view display. You can also pick on the maximized viewports down here along the bottom and then double click on the viewport title to return to the 4view display. Navigating around the Rhino model involves zooming, and you can zoom with the wheel. And my zoom, I have set to zoom all the parallel viewports. I'm going to show you how to do that here in a moment. Zooming, panning, and in the perspective view, you can also rotate. To pan the perspective view, hold the Shift key down. Okay, so Shift to pan, and then the right mouse button is going to help you rotate or tumble that view around. Now, look up here. If you want alternative ways to do pan or rotate, you can get to the commands up here in the standard toolbar. So let's look at another property of the viewport, and that is the display mode. So right now, you're essentially seeing through the objects in wireframe mode. So take a look at this. If you pick the down arrow, notice we have shaded, rendered, ghosted. Let's take a look at shaded. So shaded brings up our model in a shaded display so that the front faces are showing in the forefront and the back faces are being occluded. We also see the ISO curves, and the ISO curves are letting us know where the surface is, even if we're looking in wireframe. Wayne is having trouble with audio. I just want to perfectly, Christina, thank you for the verification. Okay, awesome, Claudia, appreciate that. Okay, Wayne, so something local with your internet, but we are getting the video. So anyway, hopefully you'll be able to watch it a little bit more comfortably after the training. Okay, so take a look at another display mode. This one is called rendered. And when you look at your object in the render display mode, you see the materials that have been assigned to your objects. So if I pick on the object, it turns yellow. That's our selection color. But look up here under properties. When I pick on properties, it gives me all of these properties about that object. And the little paint tube is blue. That's why I'm seeing this object as blue. Well, if I wanted to assign a green material, I could do that by picking here on that materials page. We call these pages. And if I go to the cone, you can see it's magenta. And if I go to the cylinder, I can make it blue. And if I go to the sphere, I could either pick from the material in the file. But here's the fun part. Let's take a look at all the materials we have in Rhino. So if I pick on the plus, I can import from material library. And then I can go to metal and down to polished. And if I put this in instead of list display, show icons, we can see instead of having to focus on the material, we can just pick like polished gold. Sure, let's talk about picking. Rhino, if I pick on just one object at a time, Christina, I just get the other object unhighlighting. But if I hold the Shift key down, I could get all of those objects highlighted. So Shift adds to the selection set. However, I can't pick on this plane because the plane is on a layer that's locked. Look how helpful it is over here to have the layer showing up in the, I can see it's locked. So if I unlock it, then I can hold the Shift key down and pick on that plane. Now with all of those highlighted, I can copy, I can move, I can delete. If I just hit the delete key here, they're gone. Okay, so that's what picking does, is it buffers up objects for commands to work on. So I may not want to delete all those objects. I may want to delete just this plane. And that way, when I delete the plane, I can see Rhino has a automatic ground plane that the render mode is using. I can also pick out in the open and do a window around objects. And if I pull to the right, only the objects completely enclosed get selected. If I pull to the left, objects crossed or enclosed get selected. And if I hold down the Command key, I can remove objects from the selection set. And if I hold down the Command key and do a window, I can remove objects again with the window from the selection set. And another way that you can select objects is by right-clicking on the layer. And let's see, let's look at these objects. They are all on a layer called surface. So if I pick this object and go back to properties, they're on the objects layer. So if I wanted to select all the objects on the objects layer, I can right-click on the layer and pick select objects. And I can pick all the objects on that layer. Okay. So I hope that helps. Now the other thing that you can get objects selected for is to change the layer. So if I don't want these objects on the object layer, I can put them on a different layer up here. I can put them on the curves layer. I can also use this area down here to change their layer. And that's brand new in Rhino 8 for Mac. That wasn't available in Rhino 7 for Mac. So if I pick on this object, I can pick down here and put it on that layer. Now, the materials that we're looking at, they're being assigned by object. So these objects have overrides on the materials. But what if I change this to use the layer material? Then all those overrides go away, and I have various layers here. So maybe I want to put them all back on the object layer. And if I assign the material to the object layer, and I like this method the most because when you'll notice when we open the file for today's class, I already have the materials assigned to the layer, and you can have that done in your template already. So if you're doing architectural models and you have a glass layer or glazing, you can already have it set to glass. You don't have to do that every time. So if I pick here and assign the objects the blue layer and then apply, you can see they're all assigned to that layer. Okay, so let's look at closing. We could actually we could leave it open.
Sorry, can I
Oh
ask
yeah,
you a question?
sure. Go ahead. Yeah.
So with the layers, like now you're assigning a certain kind of surface to these materials, right? By picking the color and but that then sits still in the object layer, not in the surface one?
Unless I put them on the surface, right? So if I grab these objects and I put them on the surface layer, then, and maybe I want 2 of them on the object layer and 2 on the surface layer. Now, it doesn't mean they're surfaces. I can put anything on
Ah,
this
okay.
layer. I can name it whatever I want.
Yeah,
But if I
okay.
pick here now and pick the magenta material, then the objects on that layer show up in that material.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you are welcome. Okay, let's take a look at another model, and you're welcome to close this model. Um, I can pick up here on the X, the red button, and I can just pick delete, and it will go away. And I want to open another model from the level 1. So back on the tutorials panel, the little mortar cap or graduation cap, and under level 1 materials, scroll all the way to the bottom and find what is Rhino, and double click on that, and that will open up a really interesting file that shows us most of the objects that we are going to be using in Rhino. Curves, surfaces. Surfaces are generated from curves. A lot of commands use curves as input to generate surfaces. Surfaces that are joined together at their edge are called polysurfaces. Polysurfaces can be open or they can be closed. And if they're closed, they're referred to as a solid. So you can have a closed polysurface that you create by joining surfaces together, or you can create polysurfaces or primitives using box or using cone or cylinder. Here we have ellipsoid and sphere, which are closed surfaces. We also have sub-D surfaces and meshes. So this gives you a really good kind of profile or preview of what all the objects are that you can create in Rhino. If you look at, and we're going to start working with the gumball here really, really quickly, but if you pick on curves, you can start extruding them into surfaces very quickly. So in no time, you can have surfaces and even closed poly surfaces using the gumball tools. So um, if you're wondering where you create solids, you can look up here on the solid menu. You can look here under solid tools. You can create boxes. You can create, spheres. I'm sure usually everybody does that the first time they get into Rhino. But you can also go to mesh and create mesh primitives if you ever need to. I can say it's probably not the most popular thing to do in Rhino, but it is an option. Rhino does support meshes and even sub-D primitives. So if you were going to be taking a look at Rhino's subdivision surfaces and doing organic modeling, and we have a lot of um, tutorials on that. If that's something you have a goal for, I can show you where some of those videos are. But you're going to start seeing these terms all around Rhino, so you know they're there when you begin a tutorial. Now, what I want to do here is get into one of the most important features or tools in Rhino, and that is the gumball. And the gumball really fundamentally changed the way we interacted with Rhino curves and created geometry back in Rhino 5. So it has sticking power. It's been around for a long time, and it also keeps getting improved. So that's the other reason why I want to cover the gumball. And it's going to be extremely useful as we start putting our project together for the day. So my goal is to be starting that project right about halfway through. So notice when, and the Mac has this, I'm sure there's controls for it, that crazy pop-up toolbar. I could probably resize my window a little to make sure I don't get down at the bottom of the screen and turn that Mac toolbar on. Okay, so what I want you to see is when I pick on the curve and I don't have the gumball on, I still see these points that are called control points. We're going to talk more about them, and they actually work really well with the gumball. But I'm going to turn on the gumball, and you can see it down here in the status bar. And when you turn on the gumball, this little widget appears, and the widget is communicating to you all the different things you can do on this object using the widget. Prior to the gumball, if you wanted to move, you had to go to the move command, copy the copy command, scale the scale command. In Rhino 5, the gumball appeared, and from the gumball, you could move, copy, scale, and rotate. And that's what those main parts on the gumball are, the arrows, the scale widget, the rotate arcs. And then we added being able to extrude into a surface, and this is an open curve, so we can't create a closed curve, and we get the different options for extruding. But we got a cutter or embosser in Rhino 8. So all that's new. There's lots of tutorials that just cover the gumball, but I need to get you enough of the gumball so we can put together our project for today. So tutorials are about just-in-time learning, but if you type in gumball in your help, it will go over all of those features of the gumball. Okay, so what I want you to see here is if I use the arrow, I can drag the curve. And if you prefer to go to the top view, you can go ahead and do that. And when I drag that curve, you can see it moving. Now, I can move it a specific distance relative to where it is right now. So if I pick on the arrow and type in 10, it moves it 10 units in the X direction. If I type in 10 in the Y, it moves it 10 units in the direction of the arrow. Now I can pick on the arrow and type in -10, and it moves it in the negative Y direction. And then the other thing I can do, if I go back to the perspective, if I pick on the blue arrow, I can move it off the construction plane, either above or below. Okay. So that arrow is used to move the object. And if you want to copy it, not at a specific distance, you can tap the Alt key and copy it. Okay. Now you might be saying, well, I want to copy it 10 units to the right, Mary. Okay, what I'm going to say to you is you're going to copy Command C, Command V, so you get two of these, and when you have two of them, then take one of them and use the move command. Now it barely moved it. Let's go ahead and do that again. There we go. And look what it did. It got a hold of the control point. There we go. I should have the curve now. There we go. So we took that copy and we moved it, which brings up another really good point, and that is that you can modify the shape of the curve using the control points. And because this is a degree 3 curve, you get those very smooth transitions between the control points. Now, a lower degree curve would not offer that. So if I pick on this square, I can move the control point, but I get those very spiky points. So this is degree 1, and our circles are degree 2. And if you remember the formula from geometry class for a circle, the highest degree polynomial in the equation for a circle is a 2. So we know that we can expect our circle and our arcs to be degree 2. But what if we wanted to ask Rhino what the degree was? Well, my favorite way is to go up under Edit and down to Rebuild, because Rebuild, even though I'm not going to rebuild, in parentheses here it shows me the point count is 8 and the degree is 2. So again, Rebuild has a really fun looking icon. If I go over here to Help, it's the working man, and I believe the working man is down at our Seattle Public Library. So if I pick Rebuild, this is the guy that you're going to be looking for on Surface Tools. You can also go into property details. To me, it just takes a little bit longer. So if I pick on this object and I scroll to the bottom, sometimes I alias the command. It's actually called what, and the what command will give us those details about point count and degree that we got very quickly out of that rebuild. Okay, so what else do we want to do with the gumball? You can extrude, and when you pick on that little arrow here, you can extrude the surface in the direction of that little sphere. You can also use an extrude command where you're given options. So if I pick this curve and I go up to solid and pick extrude plane or curve, then I get options to extrude in a direction, to type in a number like 2. So I get more options than just using the gumball. So what I want you to see here, that the gumball is really good for quick editing, but there are commands to help us with very technical moves and technical copies and extrudes, and those are our standard commands. Okay. So at this point, if you have your gumball widget, I want to make sure you can move. You can copy either with the Alt key or copy and place and paste and then move. I want to make sure you know how to scale using the scale widget. You can pull it or you can type in a number like 0.5, and then you can also rotate by typing in a number, that's 45, or by just rotating it around. Okay. I usually never create a new piece of text. I usually copy text and then I use properties over here to edit the text. Once I get a piece of text on the model, it's copied all over, and I rarely have to go back to the text command. So just keep that in mind. And I want to show you a brand new feature with Rhino 8 using this geometry here. It's called auto seaplane. And let me have you appreciate what we have to do in Rhino 7 and earlier. In order to draw on the face of this box, I would have to go to set seaplane 3-point and set the seaplane to that face. And I could save it and have an easier time getting back to it, but set seaplane, I could also go back to the world top. Now, set seaplane has a toolbar right here, set seaplane, and in it, I can get to 3-point. I can also get back to a world top. So we could do that from there. But what I want to show you is a Rhino 8 way of doing this, and it involves a new option called auto seaplane. And like some of the other modeling aids, you need to be aware when they're on, because when they're on, and you're using them, they're great, but then they can get in the way in some other commands that you're trying to use. So if I turn on auto seaplane and I pick on the curve here that I moved above the construction plane, then Rhino will move and orient to that curve above the construction plane. So I can do auto seaplane and I can pick on this curve and it orients back down to that seaplane. So anything I draw at this time is now on that construction plane. Okay, so let's talk about drawing on this surface. How do I pick a surface that's part of a poly surface? Rhino has something called subobject selection, and if you hold down your shift plus command key, you can pick on that face and be ready to draw. What happens here if I take the rectangle command now? Okay, I'm drawing on that face. If I hold down Shift and Command, I can pick on this face. And wow, I'm drawing on that face. So if I draw a circle, that circle is on that face. And if I rotate over here, Shift and Command, let's say I want to do a piece of text. So I'm going to go up, I should say, I'll do text either way. Solid text or text curves, same command. Up under solid, you can pick on text. There it is. Okay, so I'm going to create text curves and they will be created on this construction plane. Okay. Okay, so how do we get back over to this one? I hold down Shift and Command and I go back here. So why is that important to get here? Well, we have a new feature in Rhino 8 called push-pull. And when curves are on the same construction plane as the surface, then Rhino will be able to push into that surface or extrude out of that surface. And this is one of the features we're going to use in creating the table. So I'm going to go up here to Solid Tools, and I'm going to tear off the push-pull toolbar for a couple reasons. One, I'm going to add to it, and two, I want to show you push-pull. So here's push-pull, and when I pick on this area, it will allow me to pull it or push it into that surface. So push-pull, pick, and now I'm pushing or pulling out of that surface. Okay, let's try it again. Okay, but what I have to do is draw a curve that is on that construction plane, and that's also coplanar to the surface. Okay, so now when I do push-pull and pick inside this area, I'm pushing into that surface. Okay, so what happens if we set this surface as our current construction plane? Well, all I have to do is pick on it and it becomes the current surface. And if I create any geometry on it, it will behave a little bit different. And I could copy those using our gumball. I'll pick it up and I'll just tap the Alt key to get two of those. Because it's one surface, when I do push-pull, I can pick both of them at the same time, and I can emboss or engrave or emboss on that surface. Okay. So if I take this curve and I copy it over here, tap the Alt key, thank you gumball, and I do push-pull again, I'm going to emboss it. Okay, that we are going to use on the front panel of the shaker cabinet. So push-pull, really great new feature in Rhino 8. Um, let me mute out here for a moment. Okay, okay, I wanted to talk about this toolbar and adding buttons to it. So I tore off the seaplanes toolbar, and you can do that from right here. I also want to go over to the curve toolbar, so over to curve tools. And one of the tools I'm looking for is the offset, and I want to copy the offset into our push-pull toolbar. And if I type in offset and I look over here at help, we can take a look at what it looks like in curve tools. So there's our offset command. So I'm going to copy this one. I'm going to copy the top construction plane, and I'm going to do one more. I'll tear off the visibility toolbar, and I'm also going to copy the isolate unisolate command. I'll show you how that works here in a moment. So let's hold down the command key, and as I put my cursor over the top construction plane button, I'm going to drag it into the push-pull toolbar. So now I have world top in the push-pull toolbar. And I also want to do the same thing, copy isolate into the push-pull toolbar, and off of curve tools, I'm going to grab offset and copy that into curve tools toolbar. Now you can always go about it the long way, but I just want to show you some of the commands that we're going to be using in this model. I'm going to have already in the push-pull toolbar. Another one I use a lot is extrude, and so that is off of the surface tools toolbar, and here it is right here. Hold the command key down and drop it over here. Now I'm sure there's others I may want to add to that, but oh, here's one for clipping plane. Okay, I'll add that one, but you can always just take these commands by typing them in or taking them from their home toolbar. Okay, I'll close that down. And this one I want to drag over here into the lavender area. And this will make it really efficient as we begin modeling to have all of these commands up here and ready to go. So I told you I was going to talk about what isolate is. And let's say that we wanted to work with this geometry, but we wanted to turn everything else off. So what I can do is come up here and pick on isolate. And when I do that, it turns everything else off. And now I can work with this geometry. And then when I'm done with whatever the editing is, let's say Shift Command, pick here, turn on the cancel, isolate, Shift Command. Let's see. That is a poly surface now, so it is giving us a little bit of issue with picking that. There we go. That's what I want. I want that edge. I can pull it out. I can shrink it. So anyway, a little bit of editing, whatever your editing is, maybe you'll extrude that curve or maybe you'll extrude the entire surface. And when we did that, because of the various cuts that we had, we ended up with a couple of, I think I'll undo that because that turned into kind of a mess. Okay, how about extruding this guy here? Okay. Great. Let's unisolate. So I'm going to put my cursor over this button, tap the right mouse button, and now we're back to the rest of the model. Okay, I think you have everything that we need here in order to put together the next model. And there's just one point I want to make about drawing curves, and that is in Rhino, we may be in millimeters in this model, but if we know what the distance is in another unit, we can type it in. So as I'm drawing this curve here and I type in 20, I'll go 20 units in that direction, and 20 is millimeters. But if I know that I want to go 2 inches, all I have to type in is the inch mark, and I will go 2 inches, or let's say 1 centimeter. So you can follow when you're drawing curves in Rhino, you can add a descriptor to the units that you're typing in or the distance you're typing in, and Rhino will use that unit. So if I type in 3 inches with the inch mark, it will go 3 inches. It will go, I could use the foot mark here, but it would be pretty big for this model. Okay. I think I'm done with auto seaplane for a while, so I'm going to
Sorry,
make
can I
sure.
ask one more
Sure.
question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Once you've drawn a line, can you change the length of it?
You can in quite a few ways. So I'm going to turn auto seaplane on. Remember we talked about those control points? So
Mm-hmm.
you can use those control points and move. That's how you change the length of a line, is by moving its endpoints. If
Sorry, I was maybe not clear in my question.
yeah,
Like by a specific
you
distance.
absolutely can, but I want to start with that.
Yeah. Okay.
So, okay, you can do, any distance you want. So, it helps to have, the seaplane, since I decided to draw this at an angle, having auto seaplane on is really helpful because then I get on that seaplane. And if I do a window around these 2 points, I want to move it a relative 2 units. See? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I pick on these 2 points and I want to move it 10 units. See how it moves it? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so by doing the control points, I'm not just, this isn't a single line. If I explode it, it is, and now I'm just moving geometry, but it's not going to stay intact with the line next to it or the curve next to it, right? That
But there's
breaks it
not
apart.
somewhere like an information on that line that tells me that it's 15 units.
There is. There totally is. If
Okay.
you want to know how long that line is, go to analyze distance. Rhino is, as accurate as it you want it to be.
Hmm.
Here we go. Analyze. Let's do length. It tells you down here the length is 32.062 inches. But I'm just
Sorry, where
showing
do you
you
see
the,
that?
yeah,
Where do
right
you
here,
see the?
down here.
There.
Yep,
Yeah, yeah.
down here.
Okay. Sorry,
Okay.
small on the screen.
Now you can also pick on, we call this the hamburger, and it opens up so you can
Hmm.
see it. Okay. So what's another way? I do this a lot. I throw a dimension down because that dimension tells me what that distance is. Okay. So I like to get dimensions on the model early so I know how to edit it. Okay. So I
Hmm.
know what needs to change. And if I make this dimension here and I want to bring this back 0.08, then I can pick on this length, but it's not associated with the one next to it. So I also have to pick on them, window the control points, and go 0.80 in that direction. See how it evened it back to 50?
Yeah,
So it's a
great.
little bit of a game, but it is a fun game. Um, um, so what I want to show you is by keeping it as a polyline, then you get a lot of features when it comes to changing. And you can always explode and join back together again. Now that it's joined together, then all I have to do is window those points. And let's say that I want to move it another 2 units in that direction. Now, what I did do is break the history on the dimension, so it didn't update. But even without history, if I would have included the control point for the dimension in there, it would have also changed. So if I get all of these in the selection, then you can move them all 2 units and see how it updated the dimension. Okay, so anyway, what I wanted to show you is that this distance here is determined by this endpoint, and if you move that endpoint, then you're changing the length. Now, when I joined this together as a polyline, the history ran away on the dimensions, and I got a warning for that. If you look back on the video, it said that, but if I didn't do the exploding and joining to show you that, these dimensions would have been historical. Okay, Eva, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you very
Great,
much.
you're welcome. Like I said, I dimension early and I watch my dimensions and I use them to help me edit the model, both with move and with control point editing. So maybe we'll get into a little bit more of that, but I want to open
Sorry,
up
can I
our,
ask one
yeah,
more question
yeah,
about that?
sure, of
So,
course.
the way I understand it, to get the dimensions to move with the lines, you have to always link them as history,
They
or you
always
can also,
are linked. They
yeah,
always are linked as history.
okay.
It
They have
takes
it
some work.
automatic.
It takes some work to turn that off. So if
Hmm.
I just create a dimension and I don't mess around with exploding and joining,
Hmm.
that's probably a really bad color, then history is automatically um, in use here.
Okay,
Okay,
great.
great. So if I pick up this and I just do these dimensions here, you'll notice that the dimension
Hmm.
updates. Okay.
Great,
But you
thank
can
you.
remove history. There is an option, history here you can purge history. There are a lot of ways for history to get disassociated with the dimensions. So I just wanted to make sure you knew a way
Mm-hmm.
to include those dimensions if they weren't updating automatically.
Okay,
Okay,
good.
great. Okay, let's go to open. And I want to open the model that we downloaded in our practice set called Start Here Shaker Table. If you could open that for me. There is a warning about a font that since I'd originally used Rhino for Windows, it comes up with a font message, but I could clean that up and not get that message, and probably one day I will do that, but for now you can just go ahead and pick OK. Okay, so what do we have here? Well, basically we have a new model. We don't have any geometry in it. Other than a title block, and I'll show you where that is. So we are ready to start drawing those curves that we have in the PDF file. So I'm going to start with the top curves. On the top, I should say that the top of the table curves will be on the construction plane, and then we're going to use Gumball to move them into 3D space. So the table is 18 by 18. The inner rectangle that will give us the location of our legs is 16 by 16. So let's go ahead and do that. And if you tear off your rectangle, you will see that we have some options for rectangle. The centered rectangle is the one that I'm going to use. You'll also find that if you go up under curve and rectangle, you can get the center one there. Now, templates are extremely efficient. That's essentially what I had you do here, is open a template. And by opening a template, we already have the layers created, colors assigned, sometimes line types, and materials assigned. Now you can make additional layers. So if I pick here on the plus in the layer panel, I can make a new layer. Let's say I call it center lines. And the center line layer, I can give a color of, let's say, magenta. So now I have a center line layer. It's magenta, but the line type is continuous. And if I pick on continuous, I don't have the center line type. So let's go ahead and load those line types. So I'm going to go to File and Settings. And under File and Settings, these are document settings. And document settings are all these things that your model has, like hatch patterns, annotation styles, units, mesh density. We also have line types. So what line types are in the model? I only have two, and I want to load some additional line types. So look up here. There is an Add Defaults button, and I just want to add the defaults back. Now, how did I get rid of the default line types? Does anybody want to take a guess? Anybody?
You deleted them in the template?
That would be that would work, Eva. I'd have to go to line types and delete them. But Rhino has a command called purge. And when you're ready to give a model to a customer or a vendor, purge. And that will go through and delete all of your unused named objects, layers, line type styles, annotation styles, textures. You get a choice of what to purge. Okay, so I did it the easy way. I used purge, but then I wiped out all the default line types that I wasn't using. So it's a really good way to make sure you're handing off a clean file. Rhino templates, Henry, also come with 5 layers. So if you begin a new model using a template, you will have those 5 layers. I had you start a model using my template, the one I want for this model, okay? So that's why we have a much more complicated layer system. one way that you can make a template is to open up a file that you've already done. Let's say it's a building, delete everything. You love the layer system. It's got really good description, colors, line types, materials, and just save it as a template. And then every time you go to do a similar model, let's say a commercial building, you use that template. Okay? So you understand here now, right, that you opened a file that I gave you. That's why we have those layers. Just let me know. Okay, great. Let's pick on loading the default line types. And voila, look how many line types we have. Those are all the default line types. So we added them back in a really nice way. It wasn't painful at all. We didn't have to go find a file, which is always great. Okay, so what do I want to do? I want to pick here on center line type, and I want to assign the center line type to the center line layer. So we're ready to draw with that. Also, annotation style. You can see our annotation style here that we'll be doing dimensions to. Just like Eva's question, when we wanted to know how big something was, dimensions have staying power. They stay there until you delete them, so they're great. I prefer to do a dimension than do a length because length goes away. I can't see it. I forget it. So anyway, I think dimensions are fast. They're accurate with object snaps, easy to do. So I prefer to do a dimension if I'm curious how big an object is. And there will be times we'll be curious because we're making this to specific units. I want to share one last thing here before we create our first curve. Everything I draw has a real world size, whether it's a building or a table or a cabinet, whatever it is. It has real world size. I get very nervous drawing if I don't know the size. And I notice a lot of tutorials that are done, you don't know a size, and it makes me very uncomfortable. So anyway, if you like dimensions like I do, you're going to love this because everything here we have a size for. We'll be creating it full scale. And when I was a young person out of college and CAD was just coming out, we had a lot of users going from the drafting board to computers. And the one thing, the most important question that we had was how to draw to scale, or are we drawing to scale? And it's like, CAD turned the world upside down. You draw full size. So in CAD, you draw your building 500 feet long. You draw your table 8 feet long. And then you scale it in the viewport on the layout. So I want you to get used to that. When we're drawing here, we're drawing full size. So when I type in 18, whether it's 18 feet or 18 centimeters or 18 inches in this case, that curve is 18 inches. It's full size in real world values. Okay, here we go. Pick the centered rectangle. I could type in 0, 0, 0, but why? Because Rhino will just let me type in a 0 and an enter, and now I'm centered on the origin. And I prefer, if I'm modeling symmetrically, to use the origin because it helps me detect if I'm out of symmetry at any time. So that's why I'm at the origin. What I want to do is give the length, and that's 18. Now, remember what we talked about earlier. If it's 18 inches and your model is in inches, you're done. You don't need anything more. Okay, 18 is all we need twice. Now that will be the size of the table. Let's do it again. Center, 0. This time we're using 16 and 16. Okay, so that will be where the legs are. This is bothering me a little bit, but I'll close it here shortly. There we go. Let's do a 2-point rectangle, and it's going to be on the inside corner, and it will be 2 by 2. Now, I chose that corner so I could go 2 to the right and 2 up. Okay, and I need another rectangle. It'll be at the corner. it'll go 1.5 or actually 1 point. Let's try 1.7. No, 1.5. Okay, 1.5, 1.5. Okay, so that's the lower part of the leg. And now that I'm looking at it, it's not much taper. So I'm going to make an executive decision here. I'm going to make this 1.25 and 1.25. Great. Okay, so I like that because I want to see a taper from the bottom all the way up to the top of the leg. Okay, that looks good. I think we're ready to start moving this model into 3D. So let's start with the outside curve, and we're going to, and I don't think I need two of them, but if I did, I would Command C, Command V, and then I would move it up. But I don't think I need two. I think I only need one, but I can always copy one down if I need it. But let's go ahead and start bringing this into 3D. So I'm going to use my gumball, and the total height of the table is 28. So I'm going to type in 28, a positive 28, because I want it to go above. Great. So now we're finally starting to see that we're putting the model in 3D. Okay, now I need another one of these, but it's going to be,
Sorry, I've got
yeah,
another
go ahead.
question.
Sure.
So for me, I've got the gumball on, but when I select the outer square, it doesn't show um, the little arrows and the gumball thing.
Let's see, like this. It doesn't
Yeah,
show that.
exactly. It doesn't show the blue and green and red.
Uh, I'm going to turn auto seaplane off. Now down here, do you see gumball seaplane on?
Yeah, maybe I'd
Make
wait like,
sure, escape and make sure you have no command active. Okay, because gumball only works
yes.
if no command is active.
Okay, it's back. Thank you.
Cool, you're welcome. Okay, so I'm going to do that again. I'm going to move it up 28. So I think Eva is ready to move this into 3D. So we'll pick here on the arrow, type in 28 and then enter, and then zoom out and you'll see now your curve is at the top of the table. And what we want to do is to duplicate this curve and move the duplicate or one of them down by 3/4 of an inch or 0.75. Okay, so Command C, Command V, and if you prefer to use your edit up here, you can do copy and paste up here. But the point is that I have two curves right here. And Rhino shows me that with the stacked menu. And it doesn't matter which one you pick, they're identical. So that's easy at this point. So I'm going to pick one of them and I'm going to move them down a minus 0.75. Now, Rhino will take fractional or decimal units equivalently. So I could type in that, or I could type in minus 3-4. It would be fine with that, but let's just go with this. And now you can see that I have a copy of this curve and it's 0.75 units below. Now, how do we know that? Analyze, you could go to Analyze and go to Length, and you could pick on, oh, I'm sorry, I always grab the wrong one, Distance. You can pick at the distance between here and here, okay? And that tells you down here, and you can pick on the hamburger. It's 0.75, so we're in good shape there. Remember, I recommended that if you are doing distance, you might as well just create a dimension and then you know that it's at 3/4. And we can do a command called cell dim and you can type it in and just erase all the dimensions that we don't want later. Because when we add our dimensions, we're going to be adding them from the layout. Okay, so anyway, that looks good. Let's go ahead and take the curve that is where our feet are, and we're going to move that up at 21.5. Now I'm going to do this one just a little bit different Command C, Command V while it's on the ground. So we have two curves. Okay, and one of them I'm going to move up to 21.5, and the other one I'm going to move up to 21.75. So they're just a quarter of a unit inch in this case difference between these two. One will be the bottom of the leg, and the other will be the bottom base for the drawer. Okay, so that was, if I hit F2 here, the Mac, uh, Windows shows me what I type in. The Mac doesn't do a really good job of showing me that. So anyway, okay. So this also has to go up at that level, 21 3/4. So I'll go ahead and pick on it here, 21 3/4. Okay, and then I also have to move that up another 5 1/4. So we're stair stepping our way up here. I need two of these, Command C, Command V, and then we'll move this up 5.25. Okay, I'll use the decimal equivalent, and we have one more. This one also, this one here should go up at, uh, let me see, I guess this one here is going to go up at 5. So Command C, Command V. This is probably the hairiest part. Let's bring that up at 5 and see if it comes where we want it. And it does that leg here. I actually would prefer to have it even with this curve. So I can do a move, and I can move it from here to here. That's really where I want it. I might have had a typo there, but you can see we have the leg that's going to transition to this top curve, which is the bottom of the tabletop, and it's the top of the drawer. So I would like one of these curves to be 5/8 units, or we'll just extrude 5/8. I think we'll just go to extrusions for the drawer box. I think we're good is actually what that little rambling means. So let's start with the legs. And I like to start with the legs because it makes me feel like I'm making progress. So go over here, make the leg layer current, and I moved my current layer here. It probably is over to the right of the layer name. I picked it up and moved it to the far left because it seems like, and this is just me, and if you don't have this issue, you can keep it where it's at, but I find that I hit off sometimes by mistake, so I like to know that current is just the very first column, okay? And that's what I do. Okay, I need to loft between these squares here. They are square, they have the same width and length, so we are appropriately calling them that. I can go to surface and loft from here to here to here. And I got to get that curve, and I have to get it about the same place where I want the loft seam to go. So let's see how we did. And it picked the start of the curve. Since they were identical curves, that works out great. And that's the seam. I'm not going to have any twisting going on. But notice the normal loft fits a curve between the bottom two cross sections. Okay, that's what normal does. watch what happens if I pick straight sections. See how it sucks it in, and we have a straight section from here to here and then from here to here. So straight section is what I want to use on these legs. And of course, do not simplify, pick loft, and we have our legs. And very quickly, what you're going to see is that we're going to have 4 legs. Now, this leg is not a closed poly surface. So I'm going to go to Solid, Cap Planar Holes. It's the cap command. You can find it on the Solid Tools menu, and I'll let you do that with the help. But this is now a closed poly surface. So I could get its volume. It's ready to 3D print. I mean, a lot of good things come from having a closed poly surface. Okay, let's take the mirror command. And one place to get to mirror is just pop up to your menu and pick mirror. And I want to mirror across either one of these, the x-axis or the y-axis. I'm going to do the y-axis first. See how nice it is to have symmetry, because then I can benefit by mirroring across these axes. Then I'll mirror across the x-axis, but this time I've got both of them. So immediately we have 4 legs. So the legs are done, and we'll move on to the top. You already know how to do the top because I'm going to use the same method that I did for the legs. I'm going to loft, straight sections, and cap. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm on the top layer. I'll right click till I see the little menu, and then I'll pick repeat surface loft. And I'll pick here, here, and here. The seam is lined up. Straight sections is the default. Pick loft. Beautiful. We have a tabletop that has holes at the top and the bottom. Because the holes are planar, we can cap solid, cap planar holes, or pick it from your recently used menu. Okay, so we're getting some of the easy things done on the table. I like that. It helps me feel like I'm making some progress. But to do the box, the drawer box, let's go ahead and turn or make the layer current called drawer box and turn off the top. Now, you can turn it off globally, or like I mentioned earlier, if you had layouts that were set up, you might want to use this option here, which is model on off. So you only change the visibility on your model views. Okay, so you can pick that up and drag it over here. So this is, I like to call this the global switch. It's like the power on your house. If you pull it, you're going to lose power everywhere. The second one is just for your room, and your room is your model space viewport. So if I turn off the top using this one, it's only off here. And if we did have those layouts set up, then it wouldn't modify the visibility in those layouts. And one of the things we heard from our customers was that they wanted a way to essentially freeze the layout so they didn't change the layers as they were doing some additional modeling. And that's where model visibility comes in. Okay. What is the command for framing the object you are selecting to do a closer view? If you don't have a scroll mouse, well, one of the options up here is zoom selected. So if you pick on zoom selected, it will zoom that object into view. And it's the one that looks like the yellow one in the magnifying glass. But without a scroll mouse, you can use the command key and your right mouse button. I think that's the easiest way to go if you don't have a wheel mouse. So command plus right mouse button, you can drag it up and down. Okay, but then you also have the actual command right here that you can zoom in and out with. Okay, so hope that helps. Sometimes you're working on a laptop, it has a keypad and you're sitting in an airport and you need to be able to zoom without having a mouse. I get it. So that's why all those commands are there. Okay, with the drawer box layer current, let's talk about making the drawer box and let's make the bottom and the top. So I'm going to do a little bit of an extrusion here on these two objects, but I have a very specific extrusion. I'm going to extrude 5/8. So I'm going to probably 0.67. So I'm I'm going to go to solid, extrude, planar curve straight, and I'm going to type in, I'm just making sure I have the layer current. Oh, and this is good to see. I really want the drawer base layer current. I'm not ready for the box. So notice how I can change it right in the middle of the command. That's a nice thing to be able to do and not have to restart the command. Okay, 5/8, and we're going to extrude it in the positive direction. Okay, so that's the piece where the drawer is going to set. Now don't worry about the legs yet. I'm going to show you how to handle that. But pick this curve and also extrude it 5/8, but in the negative direction here. And Rhino took the direction of my mouse to determine what that was. So anyway, I have the drawer base, which is the top and the bottom. Um, Although we're not specifying joinery here, it's if you've done any woodworking, you can kind of imagine, how you would attach this to the legs, probably pocket holes and maybe some screws, a little bit of glue. So you can be thinking about that as you're putting together, but we're not specifying how these pieces are going to be joined exactly. So what I want to show you is that this piece is pretty monolithic and it goes right through the legs. So what I want to be able to do is take this piece and difference out the legs, so the volume that they have in common, but I don't want to lose the leg. So when we're done, we're going to have a trimmed out extrusion, and then we're still going to have the legs. That's the goal here. So if I go up to solid and down to difference, it asks me to pick on the poly surfaces to subtract from. Now notice the two other options I have. Okay, so make sure you have delete input checked and delete cutters equal no. Okay, and let's see what happens there. I'm going to remove the legs from this object. I'm going to do this twice. So I'm not going to I'm not going to do the upper one. Enter, and then select surfaces or poly surfaces to subtract. And now I'm going to do a crossing window and get all of those legs. And when I do, the legs are kept, but the new piece is conforming to the legs exactly. So that's just a really cool feature of Rhino. It's called difference. Let's do it again. So solid difference, pick the top piece, enter, and notice it remembered delete input and cutters, delete cutters, no. Okay, so I'll pick here and remove. Now I have two pieces that exactly fit those legs. Okay, and with that, we are ready to take a look at the what I call the drawer box. So that's not what I want to do. Drawer base, side panels. There we go. Side panels. We have to do the side panels, and then we'll move our way into the drawer. Now, the side panels are going to use this curve here. Let me see if I Still have one. Here we go. I'm going to use this curve here. There we go. Okay, so I used that for the top of the leg, but I want to move it into the middle of that piece. Now, you can be as specific here as you want to be. If you want it to be exactly a quarter, you could move it to the top of that piece. I don't think I quite got there. And then you could move it down by 0.25, let's say minus 0.25. So if you have a curve that you want to use, you may want to bring it to a level that you know and then move it into position. But it's about halfway there through that base. And I want to extrude this into the panels. Now, I also want to offset this a couple times because the panel will be inset like a shaker panel, and then the thickness will be 0.5. So let's do a couple offsets. Offset curve, 0.25, pick, offset this curve at 0.5. And you can type in offset. You can pick it from the curve toolbar here. You can get to offset, but we took the original curve and we offset it by 0.25, and then this one from the new curve, it went at a distance of 0.5. And these two curves, the last two, are what I'm going to extrude into the side panel. So the side panel is current, solid, extrude, planar, curve, straight. And I'm going to bring that halfway up into that top piece that is the top of the, where the top of the table will be setting on. So halfway through, we can see our shaker panels, but we have the same problem that we had with the base and the top of the table. It's intersecting the legs. So here's a really cool feature that we have. Again, with the difference command, I can difference the legs from this piece and watch what happens. It's immediately broken down into those 4 panels that we need at the sides. Okay, so that seems like it's looking pretty good. I can put it in rendered mode. I can get an idea how those panels are coming out. And this may be the end of your table. If you are not doing a drawer, you might be done. This might be the end of the line here, but we're going to do a table. So I'm going to start with the front piece, and I'm going to move it to the layer called drawer front. Now I can do that down here. This would probably be the way in real life, as I say, that I would move this to the front door, front panel layer. Just highlight it and then go, there we go. Make sure it's on that front drawer layer, or you can use properties, that's fine too. Or one more way we talked about in this training, you can right click and pick change object layer. So all of those ways would help you get the front panel of the drawer on the correct layer. Okay, so it's going to fit inside that space, and you could scale it from the centroid, or you can just visually scale it to it stops intersecting the front base. I like to scale from the front view, and in this case, using the gumball, it becomes a really great way to visualize where the edges of the cabinet are, in this case, the leg, and then in this case, the top and the bottom. Now, the top piece, you can see we have to um, maybe move it down a little so that it's off of the top piece. And then once we move it down a little, they may not be completely symmetrical from the top to the bottom. We'll just bring that up because I want to make sure that my drawer is going to fit in that opening, and that's going to be a nice flush um, area for the drawer front to tuck into. This is wood, so you sand it down if it doesn't fit. So that makes it very easy when you could say, oh, well, give me the exact dimension and, 1/1000th of a unit. When you're working in wood, it doesn't make sense. So if the drawer didn't fit, I'd grab my sander, sand it down, and then put it in. So, but we want to get close. And if you're using CNC to cut these, again, you want to be close. And you certainly don't want it too small because that's probably even more of a problem when you're working with wood. You may end up recutting that panel. Okay, so we have the front panel for the drawer. Now, what we don't have, and I may want to tuck that back now that I know it fits. I'll tuck it back. Okay, we have some work to do on the drawer. We need to do the drawer box, and I find that I can start with one of the leftover curves that we have here. I'm going to be moving it and scaling it. So if yours isn't at the elevation that mine is, don't worry. You'll use the gumball. I need to pull it in between the legs, and the legs are where the rails for the table are going to be fastened with screws. So I want to bring in that drawer so it fits between the legs and it's flush with the front of the drawer. And I'm going to be putting a drawer rail on here. So I want to bring it in, and we can adjust this later. If we do the hardware first, then we can know exactly how big to build the drawer. So let's take a look at doing the drawer rail. So I'm going to make the drawer rail layer current, and the first rail needs to be attached by screws into the leg. So I'm going to start with another corner to corner rectangle, and I'll pick here, I'll move it to where I want it to be in the top C-plane. But I want this to be 0.5 and 0.5. So I'm constructing my own rail system. It may be enough to just put a note and say rail system provided by Rockler or whoever you're going to buy, Home Depot, I don't know, whoever you're going to buy your rail system from. But there are rail systems that you can buy, and you have a piece that you put on the leg and you have a piece you put on the drawer, and then you're ready to go. If you have it attached in the proper place, they're very easy to install. But I just want to kind of design my own little rail system here. So it will consist of a channel and a tube. So I'll take this and I'll explode it, and I'll pick on that curve. I want that to go away. I'll window these and I'll join them together. And then I'm going to offset on the inside by 0.06. So it's a real thin metal here. Okay, so that's our channel. That's the profile for our channel. Let's go ahead and take care of the metal tube that I'm going to use as the engaging part that we'll have on the drawer. So this piece is going to go on the drawer. Okay, so we'll be ready to attach this piece to the drawer, and you can decide how much play you want with this rail. Okay, so I've got both of these. They are not surfaces yet. They're sitting at the front of of the the table. I don't want that. I want to move them back, and I'm going to start the rail that will be engaged with the table about halfway through the leg. And I'm going to start the tube that will be engaged with the drawer about halfway, about a half an inch in from the panel of the drawer. So what do we need to do? Extrude. So I'll pick this. I'm on the rail layer. We'll go to solid, extrude planar curve straight, and we're going to bring this one all the way over to halfway through the leg. Okay. And if I turned off the side panel layer, you'll see it. Okay, so there's the channel that the drawer is going to go on. And now I will extrude the tube. And maybe I want to offset this as well. It's made of the same, to show that it's made of the same gauge metal. So it is a tube. And when I extrude that at the same time, we will get a closed poly surface. And I'm going to just bring that down pretty much the length of the drawer, but it doesn't have to be as long as the actual rail that we're going to be sliding the drawer on. And if I put a note to purchase a rail system, it's really just a visual for somebody to understand that there's a rail system in place here for the drawers. Okay, I'm going to pick that, not all of that, but these two poly surfaces, and we're going to mirror them on the other side. I believe we're still symmetrical, so going up to transform, mirror, and mirror across the y-axis gets us our second pieces. Okay, so let's take a look at where these curves are that we're going to use to help us put the drawer together. And like I said, any of them that you have left, the rectangles you can use. This one's probably the best one. For me, it's kind of in the general area. That's all it has going for it. I'm going to scale that in so that it's going to engage with both sides of these rails. Now this one, if that's the size of the drawer, I might want to move that one in a little, or I can just bring this out. Okay, so we'll show that that's fastened there into, that piece will be fastened into the drawer panel. Okay, so this, I also need to change the length. And if you need to change the length non-uniformly, Rhino has a scale command, and you can scale 1D. And I want to make sure that back panel, it's really close. So up under transform scale 1D, where I like it is I don't want it to scale uniformly. I want it to start at the end that I picked, and then if I have a number, I could also type it in. Like if I knew I wanted it to be 15 inches or 14 and a half, it's probably more like it, or I can just pick. And if we throw a dimension down here, it's probably somewhere around 14 and a half. This one is 14 and a 16th. So one option that I have to scale very accurately is to scale 1D, pick here, and pick here. And then if I want, I can type in 14.5, okay? And now it's scaled it, so it's exactly 14.5. The thing to understand about Rhino is it'll be as accurate as you want to be, okay? A lot of times people just model and they, don't care too much what size things are. Rhino's good for that. But if you want to be accurate, you can get there. Rhino will be extremely accurate up to 16 or more decimal places, which is something you probably won't be able to manufacture too. So then you start getting into double uh, floating point errors, and anyway, it'll do more than you need, I'm sure. Okay, now that we have the drawer box, we're going to start building it. And just to remind yourself, where is the bottom of the drawer? So we need to move that curve that is our drawer box up into the drawer. And again, you can measure, you can use a reference dimension. Um, at this point, I'm just going to pick which appears to be about 3/8 and leave the measuring um, to you if you're concerned about that distance. What I want to do with the drawer box, which looks good, the elevation looks good, the size looks good, I'm going to explode it. And when I explode, the history on the dimension goes away. But I want to offset each curve using the offset command, but I'm going to put a flat cap on the end of it. And I want to offset it at 0.5. Okay, so the material for the drawer will be 0.5. Okay, and then I can take this side. Notice how it caps it off. And by extruding a closed curve, I'm going to automatically have a solid. And these two curves down here, I'm just going to scale them in so they're on the inside of the box. Now, for the box, we can come up with some type of joinery. Maybe it's dovetail. Maybe you're going to put in some pocket screws and come up with some square corners, or use a jig. But there's a lot of options here for how you're going to join those together. But what I'm going to do is just come up with what the wood is going to look like. So we'll offset this on the inside. Okay, there we go. Okay, so we have our pieces of wood for the inside of the drawer. If you were going to dovetail, you'd have a fancier set of curves there to bring those two together. Now, maybe you don't model the dovetail, you just put a note to dovetail the corners. Okay, solid, extrude planar curves straight. And let's come up to the height of the drawer. Now, the height of the drawer to the top of the panel is 3.5 inches. So what we may want to do is just something under that. So I'm looking down here in the status bar to get that number, 3.666. What if we put in 3.5? That would probably work just fine. Okay, so we now have the sides of the drawer. The one thing that we don't have is the bottom of the drawer. And mistakenly, I was on the drawer rail layer. So I want to get these guys on the right layer. So let me do that. I'm going to put them on the drawer box layer. So now they're on the right layer. And if you want, you can group them together so they're very easy to select together the next time. The group button right here makes it so that when you pick a set of objects, they're picked at one time. They're not like a block. They're not given a name, so they can be really quick to use. And for the bottom of the drawer, I want to scale this polyline that we made for the edge of the drawer, this curve. It looks like I may have exploded it, which is okay. We'll just make another curve, but I do need to come up with a bottom for the drawer. So if I remake the curve, then I can move it down to where the bottom of the drawer is going to be. And well, if we're coming up on a hard break here, you can go ahead and finish with the video, but I'm going to finish modeling this. We had a lot of great questions, so it might have took a little longer than we were planning, but totally worth it. So please do what you need to do, and I'm going to finish the model so you'll have it in the video. So let me bring that across. So we're working on the bottom of the drawer. Now, the bottom of the drawer will need to be a solid piece, and using that same technique of difference, you can difference out where the routing will need to be to fit the bottom of the drawer in. So let's go to solid and extrude planar curve straight, and I'm going to extrude that at a 0.125, so like it's just a real thin piece of masonite. And you can adjust the depth and even the width and length before you do the difference. But when you do the difference, you can pick our group and you can difference. Select the surfaces to difference with. I'll pick the bottom of the drawer. And now we have the bottom of the drawer and the routed pieces at the side. And if I turn off the base layer, you will see it. And if I hide the bottom, you can see where we've removed that area where the bottom of the drawer is going to fit in. Okay, great. We've got our rail. You might want to join or group together the rails for the drawer so that they're all part of the same. There. Okay, so those are all part of the drawer. And the last thing for the drawer is also the hardware, so and the front of the drawer. So let's take a look at the front panel of the drawer. And we're going to use a little push-pull to give this a shaker feel, the front panel. And I'm also going to use isolate to focus on the front panel. So let's go to isolate. And hopefully you appreciate getting a little bit of introduction to isolate earlier in the class. Now I want to work with this panel. So using the push-pull commands, there's an option called duplicate face border. I'm also going to turn auto C-plane back on. So let's do duplicate face border. And I'll pick on the face and enter. So now I have the face border and I'm ready to offset it. And I want to offset it at 0.75. Okay. And now that I have the offset, I have this closed curve. I want to explode it so that I can pick the two end curves. And those two end curves, I'm going to scale so they go beyond the edge of the drawer. And I hope you're starting to see that kind of shaker cabinet look that we're coming up with. So using push-pull, I'll pick here, enter, and I'm going to push this in 0.25. Okay, so now I have the recessed panel. Okay, and if I turned it on to rendered, you can see that. I even have the wood material already there. Well, let's do push-pull again. We'll pick here, and we're going to push that in 0.125, which is an eighth. And now you can see that shaker panel has been beautifully modeled and is ready for us to turn on the rest of the cabinet. Let's take a look at the hardware. So I'm going to make the hardware layer current, and you can be a little bit creative here with the hardware. I will start with a sphere, and you can pick like at the midpoint, and I'm going to put in for a diameter, so I'll pick diameter here of 0.125. Okay, Now, that might be too big, but let's move it into place and see. We're also going to turn it more elliptical. So we'll see if we like that here in a little bit. But using the gumball, I'm going to turn this into more of an elliptical knob. Okay, and then I'm going to move it out and we'll figure out what the transition will be to the drawer. Okay, so that seems like it's looking pretty good. If you don't like the size, you want to go down to an inch, you could certainly do that. You can also scale 3D and give it the distance there of 1 inch, so it can be a little uh, more accurate than just visual. But given the time, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up pretty quickly. I'm going to draw a circle from the center, and one will be 3 sizes, and they'll all be concentric. Sometimes O-snaps get in your way. Hold down the Alt key to temporarily disable the O-snap. I need the O-snap, and then I don't need the O-snap. Okay, so I've got some circles. So what are we going to do with them? I'm going to take the middle size and move it to the face of the drawer. I'm going to take the smallest size and move it between the hardware and to the face of the drawer. And the larger one, I might move that as well just towards the back of the piece. Now, the point here is we're going to loft between them with history and then be able to decide how we want that transition to go. So surface, loft. If I loft with history on, so I'll turn history on down here and pick this circle, and this circle, then the lofted surface will be associated with those curves. Now, I have to do it again because I okayed through straight sections. And this time, and you'll see where moving this curve is going to be helpful. This time I want to use normal. Okay, so I get a little bit of a flare to these curves. So I'll take this curve, and when I move it back, the surface updates, okay, or will update. When I redid it, I didn't turn history on, so let's redo it again with history on. It has to be turned on when you take the command, and if you retake the command, it will be off again. So there is a persistent setting. Most users, make sure it's on here, record history. Most users don't like that unless they're expert users, but it's something to consider in the future. I'm going to go ahead and drag those back, and now when I do that, you can see the surface updating. So I can pick any of the curves and update the surface, both the location and how big the curves are. So I can take the middle curve and make it a little bit smaller. I could change it non-uniformly. I'll go ahead and hold down the Shift key, and now you can see how we're designing our knob on the fly. So I'm going to group those together so I don't lose that history, and in case I want to get back, I have a very easy way to select all of them or the knob together. Okay, cell CRV. To select those curves, you can delete them if you don't have any use for them. Actually, let me undo that because I actually deleted the curves that I'm using for my hardware. I could lock that layer so that we don't pick them, but I'd have to make another layer current. Let's see if that's going to do the trick, but these may all be on that layer. No, let's see. Great. Okay, we're good. We still have our hardware curves, and then we're able to delete all of those other curves. And now is the exciting time that we get to unisolate. So I right click on this button, and our geometry comes back. If you want, cell CRV, and you can hide those curves just to clean things up a little, and you can turn on the top. Okay, so we have completed modeling. The only thing, the last thing that you might want to do here is add some type of blocking so that the drawer doesn't get pushed in too hard. So it's kind of a picky thing, but you can see how easily you can model it with Rhino. So I'm going to group all of the drawer together. Now, if I were doing a whole vanity, I might save this as a block so that I'd be able to count like how many drawers I have in the end of modeling the vanity. Okay, so we're going to need something to keep the drawer from going any further here. Let me one thing I don't like here, and I may not be able to fix it with unless I ungroup them. So let me pick these and isolate, and then we'll ungroup, and then we'll pick all of these. These should be a little more flush with the drawer box. Okay, like that better. Okay, let's regroup these. Group over here, Control G, and then let's right click to unisolate. Okay, so let's talk about we need a spacer here that will rest on top of the base, and it will keep the drawer from being pushed in too much and banging at the back. So what I like to do is just draw a curve about where I want that spacer to be, and then just make it, use the gumball to make it a little bit smaller. So the critical distance here is not the height. I mean, I can even make it smaller. It's where the face of the drawer is going to hit. So that will work well. The one on the top is going to be a little bit thinner. So if we did a mirror and we mirrored that over the center line, you can see that we don't have as much room at the top. So we may just want to do a quick little gumball edit here. Just want to make sure, again, the critical distance is that these are stopping here, and then we give the drawer a little bit of room in case there's something that extends up beyond the drawer. Now, the width is probably fine. I don't know if you'd rip this piece or if you'd get like a 1x2, but that would be something to take the dimensions off for. But I'm going to take these two pieces and I want to find out where they are. And they need to be on the inside of the leg, and it looks like they're perfect on this side. So let's go ahead and extrude them. So what layer are we on? Drawer base, that's perfect. Solid, extrude planar curve straight. And then we'll make a layout and then we'll be done. We'll have something to print, and I'm going to extrude them over here. I could type in a distance like 0.5, maybe something less than that, 0.25 will work. Okay, and now we'll take both of those extrusions and we'll copy them to the other side. So we'll have a place to stop the drawer. We can actually mirror these again, mirror over the y-axis. Great. So now we're symmetrical. And let's add a layout. And a layout is where we can show multiple views of this object. And I went ahead and saved this. Probably should change the name, but I can always unzip another one. I'm going to go to Layouts and Plus, and I'll add a D-size sheet. If you pick here in units for millimeters, you can see how 914.4 millimeters by 609, that's our size in inches, which is a 36 by 24. It will be landscape orientation, and we're going to do the third angle projection, which is what we use here in the US. First angle projection. If you're in Europe, give that one a try, maybe later or with the second time through the model. Pick apply, and we get a layout, and the layout represents the sheet of paper that's going to go to the printer or plotter. Now, the windows that you see here are called details, and they're windows into the model. So the model only exists one place in the model space area, but these details are windows into the model. So I like to pick on those details and put them on their own layer. You'll see I already have a details layer. Okay, and now they're on the details layer, and I do one more thing. I scale them down and I move them apart. So one of the things you'll be doing is double clicking to move back and forth between the paper and the detail. So having the space or buffering in between viewports, I think, is really helpful. The viewports into the model are called details here on the layout, and you can turn on control points and you can change the size of these details. So if you don't like the size they are now, control points is a really efficient way to do that. Now we have room for our title block. We can double click over here and we can make this rendered. Okay, so we put that in rendered mode. And these details, we want to look at the parallel, our parallel details and set the scale so they're all the same. Now, obviously, this one right now is a little bit bigger. I can get close visually, but let's have Rhino do that. So I'm going to pick on this one, and I want to make it exactly 1 to 3. Okay. And then when I make the detail active, I can type in a command called synchronize views. And synchronized views should, and they did, they blinked at us and lined up the other views. Now, during the GoTo training broadcast, I don't have a lot of really good luck with this. It seems like they always are off. So, and if I do this after class, they come out great. But anyway, you can see these two aren't lined up. So what I may want to do here is move and grab the endpoint and then move it over to that line. Okay, and then I would have to grab the control point, just one, because we're restricted to rectangular viewports. So you can't make irregularly shaped viewport. Okay, once we've set the scale, and these all should be 1 to 3, this one is probably within the margin of error, but I'm going to make it exactly 1 to 3. I'll highlight each of them and lock it, and that way I can zoom in on them and not change the scale. I can also lock the perspective view. Okay, so now when we zoom in, we aren't changing the scale. So we're ready to add text and dimensions. And there's one other uh, panel that is really helpful to open up at this point. It's the block panel. So if you want to open up block definition panel, you'll see that we have a 36 by 24 title block to bring in on this sheet. And before I bring it in, I will make the title block layer current. So I'll probably just make the main, maybe title block insert. I'll make this layer current. And when I'm over here on the model, I have to drag that current over again since it keeps two different configurations. And when I'm here on the layout, I may only want to see the layout properties, not the model properties. So I can turn these off. And all I did is pick up here on this little grid and turn off things that don't relate to layouts or details. Now, if you have a massive monitor and it doesn't matter because you've got lots of room to show them, then maybe you don't want to do that. But if I go back here to model space, you can see now I see the model layers. And when I'm here on the layout, I see layers that relate to the model. For example, the dimension layer here is on, and I want to turn it off in the detail. So I'll just pick off, and it will go off in that detail. Now, where is the dimension? It may not be on the dimension layer. So let me go ahead and move it onto the dimension layer. And I can do that with one command, cell dim. If it's on the dimension layer and the dimension layer is off, then it goes away in that one viewport and it's on in the rest of the places on the model. Okay, title block, that's what we were getting ready to do. Let's grab the blocks and title block, and we'll insert it. I'll pick down here in the lower left corner and enter for scale factor of 1, rotation of 0. And now we have the title block, which uses a couple things called fields. And if you notice here, shaker table design, that's actually document user text. And if I take the layout and duplicate it, I don't want to add a new one, I want to duplicate. There we go. And then duplicate again. Let's say we take the first one, and I'm on page 1 right now. I can double click on it. And I will make page 1 only a project information and this one larger view. Page 2 will be a view of the table without dimensions. Page 3 will have dimensions. So I'll call this page 2. And we'll call this page 3. Okay. So this one we're going to add dimensions to. So what I may want to do is just take a look at the dimensions and the size that they're coming in. They're not bad for a D-size sheet, but I would make them a little bit, like to make them easier to read. So I think we're going to bump the size up. So go to File and Settings. And for your dimension style, right now, it says that our model space scale is 2, but we are using layout space scaling, which means these are the numbers that are applied. So only a text height of 1/8 of an inch. So what I want to do is scale all sizes so that on the layout, the dimensions will be twice as big, and that should be enough. You can see they've gotten bigger, a little bit easier to read. If you don't think that that's enough, you can make them even bigger. If you want to do scale all sizes again, You could put in 1.5 or 2, and then you'll see that they're even easier to see out here. Again, that would be pretty big on a D-size sheet, but you may be making a poster and you want them really big. Okay, so we are ready to add dimensions. We just have to decide, are we adding them on the layout or are we adding them in the model view? So if I double click here and I go to drafting linear dimension and I pick here and here, you can see that the dimension is being created on the model. Okay, and so I can go to the next one here, which is the 16, and then the next one here. Okay, so will this be visible on the model? Let's go find out. I'll go to the perspective view, and if you look in the perspective view, the dimension layer is current, but I can turn it off in the model. So if I pick here, off in the model, then I don't see them in the model. And if I go back to my layout and continue dimensioning, those dimensions won't be visible there. Similar to what we did up here in this viewport where we turned off the dimension layer. Okay, I can double click down here and continue to make dimensions. There is a drafting tab. It's got linear dimension on it. So it makes it really nice to just go up and grab your linear dimension button. And from here to here, you can see now those dimensions that we used when we were creating this model. And you can do some additional dimensioning here on the drawer. You can pick to line up with a dimension. You can add in. You can actually do chain dimensions. You just have to turn that on. So if I double click here, you can be on the model or on the layout. But if I take the linear dimension and I create one dimension, I'll pick over here. Notice I'm on the paper. Those won't show up in the detail, but only on this one layout. So if I repeat the command and pick continue, then you can see I'm rolling right off of that dimension. We also do baseline dimensions, so you'll see that up here on the command line. Okay, well, that looks like it's ready to print. I did want to show you one more panel here. It's called Document User Text, and this is where we're getting the information about the project called Shaker Table Design, and we can rename that Shaker Table. Getting started. And by doing this, I want you to see the magic of the title block. It updates all of them. So when I go here to all of my title blocks have updated because that is a field. So you can have fields on the document. You can also have fields on the layout tab, and then that way you can have layout specific information like contents. Okay, for example, if I come over here and I pick on layout user text, let's say I add a layout for contents 1. Okay, so if I add contents 1 and then I pick on the value, and the value here is rendering. Okay, so look what it did. It updated with rendering. So if I go over to the next layout, layout 2, and make that current, layout 2 has the dimensions. So on the layout, I can pick contents. The real idea here is to have this already done, but I wanted to show you just one more thing about the field contents 1. This is dimensioned tech drawings. Okay. Now, if we did it right, it shows up. Right. Now, what do I mean do it right? Well, if you double click to edit your title block, you'll see that I had a contents 1 field in this model. Now, I have a typo on this one. So if you correct the typo, then you can use contents 2. There we go. We can use contents 2 now. Let's go ahead and apply it. So if I add contents 2, I can type in a value for contents 2, and that will be, we said, oh, how about top, front, right views? Something like that. Okay, there it is. Okay, now that also had a bold font associated with it, but we're ready to send this to the printer. I always save before printing, and when you print, a brand new feature in Rhino 8 is the Rhino PDF, and you get some other really wonderful perks here. You can print all the layouts. You can select them all by picking on the print button. You can unselect what you don't want to print. Maybe you just want to print these 3. You can preview them up here or down here. And this is my favorite thing. I'm so glad we got to it before we ended today. Open after saving. So when I pick open after saving and print, then we'll write out this to a PDF file, and Rhino will ask your Mac OS what your default PDF reader is, and it will open it up in the PDF reader. So we'll give it a second to print. And when it finishes, we'll have the shaker chair in the PDF reader. Okay, well, it looks like it's going to be busy there for a while. Not quite sure. Maybe it's just me not being patient, but it looks like it wrote it out. And it actually opened it. I just didn't have the screen ready for you. So there you go. There is our project, our PDF files, and you can see if I slow down a little bit, we have our description that we added here to the title block. So anyway, the purpose of this model may be many-fold. So for renderings, for working drawings, from here you might want to work out a cut list, but this is where it all starts. Okay, Christina asks, in the tutorial video Rhino 6, properties material in the panel is not in Rhino. Also persistent is snap filters. So let me see if I can we can find the associated options here. So things are different. So we just got to find out now what property, materials property, that's just editing the material, right? So when you find a material to edit, whether it's, there are a couple ways to do it. One way is right here. You can pick here and bring up, these are the material properties. That's how you change the properties of your material. Okay, so you can get to it from here, right from the layer if it's assigned by layer. The other place you get to it is by opening the panel, and there are about 45 panels. So it may take a little bit to realize that there are a lot here that you'll have to kind of get used to, but one of the options is materials. And when you go to materials, this is where you edit the materials. So I believe this is what you're looking for in Rhino 6. If not, send me a screen capture so I can help you find it. But off the material tab or off layer, that's where you edit the materials. Now, persistent, snap, and filters, that's down here. This is called the grid snap. So if you turn on the grid snap, then you will be snapping to the grid. And if you're talking about O snaps, they're already persistent. So the only way to not make them persistent is to disable them. So by default, just like Windows, O snaps are persistent. So any command that I take, it's going to go out and try and find an endpoint, a midpoint, a center. If I disable it, then I can pick one O snap at a time, and I would use this O snap toolbar and go pick endpoint. Okay, but then I'd have to go back and get an endpoint. Okay, so that's the non-persistent way of doing that, and you can also disable and enable the persistent nature of O snaps using that button, or like I pointed out down here. I think seeing it gives you a really good comparison of what you're getting out of Rhino 8, and then going through this video and this class will really help you use those Rhino 8 features. So anyway, let's go ahead and stop the recording.